Hey guys, this is Aaron. I wanted to talk to you today about effective labor rate and why it helps you make more money. If you understand how effective labor rate works, effective labor rate, if you were to go and get a business summary from the shop, or you were able to ask for some type of a monthly report like a profit and loss statement, etc., you're going to see a total sales. And if we use our easy $100,000 number for an example, what you would find is at $100,000, roughly 50% is parts, 50% is labor. So if we have a parts total in our part, it would say sales right next to it, parts sales of $50,000, and then you had labor sales of $50,000, then you'd be able to go, okay, if we did $50,000 in labor, I could then take my business summary and see how many hours we sold for the month. If you go and you take that 50 grand worth of labor sales, and you divide that by however many hours you did. So let's say you did 500 hours that month. That would equal $100 at the end of the month for an effective labor rate. Now that might sound great, but what if your labor rate in your shop, your door rate, is actually 120? But it turns out now that your effective labor rate is 100. That's a difference of $20, right? So that $20 difference isn't a great thing. Your goal as an advisor is you don't want this to drop more than 10%. So really at 120 bucks, we don't want to see more than $12 come off of this. So if you want to find a good rule of thumb, I'll just put here suggested 10%. This 10% number for this particular ticket would be $12, which would leave you at 108. That would be the goal. So from 120, you would not want to go below 108. All you do is you take your labor sales every month and you divide that by your billed hours. So I'll write out the formula for you here one more time. Labor sales divided by billed hours equals effective labor rate. That's simple. Labor sales divided by billed hours equals effective labor rate. So this is our goal. We want this 10% right here. And if we were able to follow this down, we would see that the shop is actually more profitable when this happens. Now, why is that? Let's say that you're selling work and there's several other advisors there. As you review the numbers at the end of the month, let's say that you had $50,000 in sales. And let's say that you don't have 500 hours, but you actually maybe have, well, no, we're going to say you had 500 hours billed hours, but let's say your pay hours to your technicians were not that. So if this was your business summary, and you say, you look down here at the bottom, you'll see billed, and let's say it's 500. But you notice for the tech hours, what was paid out was 550. That difference right there, that 50 hours that you're not tracking, you don't know where it went, that went to those technicians, actually hurt the profitability. You may not think it's a big deal, but if the shop makes more, you make more. So if you understand that that $50 is disappearing, we got to figure out how can we capture that back. So a couple quick things. If we take this 550, and we say, okay, what we really did was 550 hours that went to our technicians that we paid them. We had 50 hours basically not get accounted for, which is roughly 10%. And I don't like it to be more than really 5%, but I really love it to be around that 2 to 3% range. So I'd love that to only be 10, 15 hours. Really, that's where I'd love to see it. Obviously, it's much higher than that. What happened? How did this happen? That 50 bucks, or 50 hours, we know is worth about $100 an hour for us. So that's easily another 5,000 bucks. In some shops, if the labor rate's higher, it could have been $7,000, $8,000 at the end of the month. So if we want to get that money back, we got to ask ourselves, where did it go? So if we've got $50,000 we know of in labor revenue, it came through a series of different conversations from different advisors to different customers, all together, and it equaled out this average. So let's play a little game here. We're going to lay out 3 different technicians, all right? And you can try to figure out which, or I said technicians, I mean advisors. You can try to figure out which advisor you are. We're going to say this is Sally. We'll call this one Bill. and this one John. And so if we go and we review John, John's pretty good. On the surface, John looks like he's awesome. He's got a close percentage rate of, let's say 55%. Let's say that Bill's got a close of, let's say 45%. Let's say Sally has a close rate of 40%. So 55, a 40, 45, and a 40. And on the surface, you'd say, wow, John, looks like the man. In fact, we might even dig in and look at the ARO. And as we dig in for each one of them, we find out that, Sally right here, she's got a 500. This guy over here's got a 6. This guy's got a 7. It'd be very, very easy for us to say that this guy here's the best. I mean, John is the man. He's got the highest ARO. He's got the highest close percentage. The issue is, what is the effective labor rate for each of these people? And if we dug in a little bit deeper, we'd start to discover something. So let's come back over here to the concept of effective labor rate. In the effective labor rate arena, I want you to understand that if we have a goal, if your labor rate's 120 and we have a goal of not discounting more than $12 to hit 108, and it's going below that, we're giving it away somewhere. There's lots of mistakes where this can happen. One is technician comes up front and says, hey, I need more hours, then walks off. And they're kind of a jerk to you and you feel bad, and so you give them another hour. That doesn't get billed to the customer. That's one way it starts to drop. Another way is you get bullied into it by a customer and you feel bad, you give a discount. So then the next customer, you go get on the phone and you're just kind of nervous and you pick up the phone, and before you even call them, that worm's got in your head and it's, hey, they're not going to pay for this, they're not willing, blah, 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 and you discount it before you call them. All kinds of little things that just keep eroding hours away. Well, I'll give you an example of this. Let's say that you're on the phone with a customer and you're talking to them, and you can already tell they're already negative in the beginning, and you've got your screen up in front of you. And you've got a box here and a box here. And right here, you've entered in the amount of $250 for an AC compressor. The system has spit out, I don't know, it tells you in your system that it should be $475. And the cursor's blue. You've not finalized this and created an actual invoice out of it. It's still in the estimate stage, and you just go, I'm not feeling it. This guy's probably going to tell me no, and you just go ahead on your own and you change it to $410 on the spot before you ever call them. Well, what happens is you've adjusted your parts price. We think that's not a big deal. We don't really think it's an issue. And then the customer comes in with a coupon for a dirt cheap oil change, or maybe a cheap alignment, or a certain amount off, and maybe you knock that part off the labor. So what we find out is your effective labor rate at the end of the month, we think you're doing good. You've got a 108 right here. The door rate's 120. Look, I'm doing a great job. We're doing well. And if we go and we look on the surface, and maybe you're Sally, maybe you're Bill, maybe you're John, but if we don't see this from the right angle, we're going to miss it, and it's very subtle. When you keep discounting these parts, there's no way a bookkeeper can come behind you, an owner, a manager, anybody, and really know what you're doing unless they know what to look for. Only you as the advisor know this, and the problem is you're hurting yourself, because if the shop makes more, you make more, and if you keep taking these little cuts off of parts, you end up losing. So see, your parts are half the equation. Labor's the other half. Parts uses a matrix, which we kind of treat like artificial intelligence to come up with a price for us, and we don't have to think about it. Labor over here is the only thing you should be thinking about, and we use what we call labor rate. That's how we estimate jobs. It's just that simple. I want to challenge you to not allow yourself to discount parts. I know it's the easiest thing, because as an advisor, a customer can shop you at AutoZone, Napa, O'Reilly, any of our local parts houses, and then call you up on the internet, whatever, and beat you up and say, hey, this compressor's X, so-and-so has it for Y. The problem with that, though, is when you let them bring that up to you and you don't try to combat it and you just discount parts, or before you get on the phone, you just do it beforehand because you just are worried they're going to discount, which is even worse, which is what we did right here. What ends up happening is the bookkeeper Other advisors, the owner, they're the only way they can figure it out is on the effective labor rate. No one knows you're doing this but you. But the shop's not making as much. And when the shop doesn't make as much, guess what? You don't make as much. We need the shop to be more profitable. If you stop discounting right here on this part side, it's going to be a game changer for you. We've had shops that have said, you know what, we're not going to allow this anymore. You have to do all the discounts on labor. Now what that means is we're not going to actually cut hours. We're just going to cut the amount we're charging the customer per hour. And what happens is all of a sudden, instead of hitting a 108, they find out they're really hitting like an $84 an hour number. And they go, oh my gosh, we're like way, way off. And what they discover is they were giving $12 away for the labor section, right? So right here, they were already discounting from 120 to 108, 12 bucks. On the parts section, we go and we dig into it a little bit cheaper, and that's 16 plus 8, it's 24. They were giving away $24 in the parts section, but there was no way to track it every single hour they were selling. So if you as an advisor sold, maybe you sold 100 grand a month, maybe you only sold 50, it doesn't matter, but your total sales, if the shop did 100 grand and you sold all of it and 50,000 of it was labor, you know you gave $12 an hour on each hour you sold in labor, but you don't realize, because there's no way to really track, how much you gave away in parts if you went and discounted it before the ticket was invoiced and you didn't hit the discount button. There's no way for any of us to know. And the problem with that is that 24 bucks adds up when you start multiplying it times 500 hours. And on top of that, it adds up when you start letting hours leak out to technicians, and technicians come and they bully you and they push and they try to get you to give them hours for things that either they haven't earned, or maybe it's, I'm not doing the job for that, or this job's rusted, or I always get this much when I do this type of job, or you got to give me a bump of some type. When you do that, you're actually, when you're not charging it to the customer or giving away diagnostic time, that's another big one, and you're not charging that to your customer, you're just hurting your profits. And when you hurt your profits, the shop doesn't make as much, and then you don't make as much. If you want to be a top-level advisor, you have to understand effective labor rate. And if we dive into these three people here, while John has the highest ARO, he's closing the most out of anybody, he's actually got, if we dive into this, the lowest effective labor rate. So this dude's effective labor rate over all of these people, if we're landing right now at a 108 or something, this guy's probably down in the $90 range. This guy's effective labor rate, he's probably around 100. And then over here, we've got Sally, her effective labor rate is probably about 110. Maybe even, that's probably even higher than that. It's about 120. She's doing a better job holding the numbers. Really good job, almost keeping it right there. And these guys are bringing it down. But the problem is, nobody knows how much they're giving away on the parts side. And it's happening every day. So you and the other advisors that are sitting next to you, or any parts managers in the office with you, it's you guys' job to be ethical and honest with yourself. It's not even about being dishonest with customers or owners or the other shop members out there. It's for yourself. You want to know how good you are. And this is how you track how good you are. You track your effective labor rate. That tells you how much you're giving away. And remember, at the end of the day, it's just labor sales. So if we know we did $50,000 in labor sales divided by billed hours, 500 hours, that equals your effective labor rate. 50,000 divided by 500 hours is 100 bucks. It's just that simple. It's not complicated. You want to be Sally. You don't want to be Bill or John, because while they have higher average tickets, they're actually less profitable. She's making more money on a $500 ticket than they are. And if you make more money for the shop, you're going to make more money for you. So understand where this profit comes from. Don't pre-discount. Hold the labor line as much as you can. And if you have to discount, do it on the labor side so that you can do your own math and figure out what your own effective labor rate is, and you can know how much you gave away. And you can hold yourself accountable. And you can make little tweaks, little adjustments, get better at your scripting, get better at your welcomes or your greetings whenever they come into the shop. You're more friendly. You're just figuring out how to bond more, get rapport with the customer, so you get a better sale in the end. Because if you get a better sale in the end and everybody wins, you're going to win. So just make sure you understand how effective labor rate works. You may need to watch this a couple times. Make sure you understand why pre-discounting is so bad. Wait for the objection. In other videos, we'll explain to you how to overcome those objections. But don't discount until you have to. All right, guys, we will see you in the next video.